Hello, everybody. Russell Hill, host of WTF, and that is What the Fixed Ops to all of you. I'm excited about our show today. I can't wait to really do a deep dive and get into this personally, professionally, etc. But before I do, I want to make sure that you know the other person on here.
Thanks, Russell. I'm Charity, co-host for you today. And before I introduce our guest today, I need to shout out our sponsor, WYNN'S. People who love cars love WYNN'S, so check them out. I put a link in the description below. Now, I'm really excited to introduce our guest today. We have the founder and president of BZ Consults Group and the host of Facts Not Feeling podcast, Brooke Furniss. Brooke, welcome.
Hey!
Thank you so much for having me on. I am so excited to be speaking with both of you, but also to be on the show and to just be hanging out with both of you. I'm super, super stoked for this.
We are too.
Yeah,
Why don't you tell everybody who you really are? Because we have a lot of the same followers, with your successful podcast as well. But then there's a lot of people that may not know you. So let's tell everybody who you are and what you do, Brooke.
Well, first off, how do they not know who I am at this point?
I know,
Come
right?
on, seriously. Yeah, so first and foremost, I am Brooke Furniss, as Charity and you both said, and I am the founder and CEO of BZ Consultants Group. Do have a podcast on the side that's been just so much fun to do it, but also just so much fun to learn so much from incredible human beings. For my business side of the consulting group is, I've sat in about every chair there is to sit at this point in my career, and it's been a lot of fun. I love this industry so much. And it got to the point that I just go, man, I just want to kind of go out my own, because in my own experience, it just got, man, there needs to be more champions for the dealer. And that's where I started the company, was just hey, let's be product agnostic, which we are, and we champion the dealer's voice. And so we go in and just say, we inspect what should be expected out of the digital vendors. And that's, when I say digital vendors, most people think, oh, so you're on the marketing side. I'm like, hey, that's a part of it. We've been called a lot of things. Some things, if I said it, we might get kicked off the air. I think you all know my sailor's mouth. So, but more importantly, a digital auditor or a fractional CMO, but that goes to front of the house, back of the house, the CRM. It looks at everything and just say, okay, this person's doing a super, super great job. This person, hey, there's room for improvement. We're just there to educate both the dealer and their digital partners, whomever they may be, on whether it's front of house or back of house. And like I said, from the podcasting point, it's just been whatever we can do to move the industry forward. That is really what it comes down to, is we bring on people from a C-suite down to someone that might not be in the industry, of how they got to where they are and how that success can help other people. And that's what it comes down, just like you all do, is just to move the industry forward, because our industry it honestly is awesome. And I love it so much.
It's amazing. It's small, but it's very, very large. We're really a close-knit family. And, I tune in just about every Friday to your podcast, but what I really don't know, and I think everybody would like to know, how did you actually get started even doing what you're doing? Were you in retail? I mean, how did all this come about, et cetera?
No, and I love that question. And I love hearing people's stories of how they all got in the industry. I had a friend of mine that came on the show, and we've known each other for a long time. And we call it the oh shit moment. Like, a lot of people don't get into the industry. They're like, they aren't born in the industry. And so they're like, well, shit, I guess I'm going to try this out. And that's really what happened to me. My background is in the medical field. And in 2008, I had, rewind. I've loved cars my entire life. I have 3 older brothers. I have 2 sisters. And I was like 8, 7. My family would take me, not my 3 brothers, to go buy a car. And I would just sit back, sit in the car, and my little blonde head is bopping around. And the car salesperson would be like, okay, here are the specs of the car. And I'd be like, no, it actually has a V6, not a V4. You're incorrect. And the salesperson would be like, who the hell is this little girl back here? So I've always had a love of cars. 2008, I had a corneal transplant, and is the crazy thing, I know, but it took me out of work. I was out of work for a year. And my friend goes to me, hey, by the time I could get back working again, he says, hey, you know more about cars and more about, and you love traveling and more than anybody I know, I think that, there's my friend from college started a company. I think it'd be a really good fit for you. 2009, 10, I didn't know anything about what a thing called a CRM was. Well, his friend happened to be Jonathan Ord that worked and founded Dealer Socket.
Yep.
So I literally was just like, sure, where do I send my resume? And that's how I got into it. So I went from working in the medical field and touring around the world with Broadway shows and working with just amazingness and having a never-ending after party with Broadway shows, which was amazing, to jumping into the car industry. And I really just took a job because I needed to work and thought, this will only last a little bit. And that was in 2009, 2010, something like that. And fast forward to 2023, and I'm still in this industry and I love it. And that's how I got there.
Yeah, it's amazing. 2009, that was a big downturn,
Yeah.
and people were scrambling. Well, you learned a lot real quick, but you ended up, even though CRM, did that just entice you to continue on the digital side of things? And I'm just, because now you do everything front to back. I mean, you look through every crack and crevice there is of what they're doing, who they're using, how it's working, where the overlap is. That had to be quite a curve for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely a learning, because once again, I knew a lot about cars. I was very digitally savvy, but I was like, I didn't know what the heck this thing called the CRM was. So I went from that and I learned real quickly. And I was also, at the time, I was the only female in the industry, in the company for what we did. So that was also, but once again, I grew up a massive, massive tomboy. So I was like, okay, yeah, roll with this. Okay, cool. This is great. And then from learning so quickly, and I was like, I really love this. This whole, from where I started to where I ended with that company and moved on to my next chapter of the automotive industry, I learned a lot and was able to be like a sponge and just absorb a lot of it. From there, my younger brother and I actually started a company in body shop world. So it was with a software company. And when he came to me, the idea, I go, man, if you can make this work, you're never going to work a day in your life. But it was so great to go from what I had there to going with a company with my younger brother, because I was like, I could get where the CRM company was, yes, it was both front and back end, but I got this massive appreciation for the back end and from the service and the fixed ops. And I got that appreciation, which led me into working with my brother, where I could help him with this body shop collision software company, where then that just exponentially made all my knowledge of what I thought I knew was like, holy crap, I don't know what I don't know.
So I got to ask you, did he ever work again, or did he make millions?
He sold that company, made very good money, and now he's on his 10th company at this point, and he just works 2 days a week. His whole goal is to, as much as possible, never miss a ballet recital, never miss a PTA. Awesome. He's a California kid.
Did you also make millions as well, or?
I got out. This is before Zoom, before we had anything like that. So trying to managing people in California versus Chicago was a little too difficult. So I got out and started my company. So that's what happened.
Were you married at the time, or did you meet your, I'm just
so Chris and I met, I moved out to Chicago in 2010, I want to say I moved out. And then we met in 2010, and then we got together in 2011. We started dating. So we were together. We've known each other for a very long time. About 13 years now. 13. Yeah.
Tell us about, building that client list of vendors when you started your company. Where'd you start?
So where'd I start, man? It comes down to just relationships in general. That's the biggest thing, is I think anytime you're starting a company at all, it comes down to, don't ever step out from that cushy paycheck that you're getting every single week or every single month or whatever it may be, and be like, all right, I'm going to start a business. You have to have that client list and that relationship list before you ever step out. And even when you step out and say, okay, all right, I have my list of, we'll say 20 or 30 or whatever it may be, know that list is going to shrink exponentially. And it's not that they don't mean well. It's just they think and they swear they're going to do business with you. But then you really push comes to shove and that money isn't actually in your bank. So I knew that, hey, I have this list I'd had a list for a very long time, and some came, some didn't, some wanted to, whatever. But you make sure you have that list and just know that list is going to shrink quite a bit once push comes to shove and money is now involved.
I don't think people really understand, having that cushy job or that regular paycheck, what it is to step outside of your comfort zone like that, to actually start something new. And of course, you never really know everything that you're going to encounter along the way. But for me, anyway, that's where life really exists for me. I love being on the edge of that comfort zone. I like comfortable things. Some people get that confused. Hell no, I love comfortable things. I'm talking about stretching, okay, and meeting people. And when you step outside like that, it's amazing how people introduce you to this person and that person. Next thing you know, you're off and running. But everything is relationships, isn't it? Everything.
Yes. Don't ever burn at all possible. Please never burn a bridge. I know that there are times where things are out of your control, or it's a really bad situation, and that bridge will be burned. I'm fully aware of that. Believe me, especially Charity, you can attest to this. Being in this industry long enough as a female, there are bridges that are going to be burned. And sometimes that you literally need to probably light that on fire, but as at all possible, do not burn that bridge. Going back to Russell, you said at the very beginning of this whole conversation, this industry is an incredibly large industry, but man, it is so insanely small. And if you think for a second what you say behind closed doors to your good friend, you don't think that's going to get back to someone? I guarantee it is going to get back to someone. Just wait, because at some point that will get back to somebody. So just don't burn a bridge. Please don't burn a bridge.
Don't tell anybody. This is just between you and I. And that's
between the two of us.
One person to another, and next thing you know, it's blown up. It is very small. I've been in it 38 years, and I've seen people literally make a single comment and destroy their whole business. Yes. I mean, that's kind of extreme, but it happens. It really does. Word of mouth and people. Mm-hmm. So I got to ask you, you're working with all these different vendors and stuff like that, making recommendations. You're looking out for your client. Obviously, you're looking out for your client. You don't want to burn bridges, but some of these vendors aren't really above board. They don't. There's no relationship there. They don't communicate, or it doesn't even do what it's supposed to do, and they obviously have to go bye-bye at some point in time. Have you ever been the brunt of that decision being made, where the vendor says, "Hey, Brooke, what the hell are you doing?" I'm curious. Is that ever
never, Russell? Okay. I've never been MF up and down, like no tomorrow. Never. That's another thing. You have to have very thick skin in this industry.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yes. No. Because once again, we are product agnostic. So my job is to say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Dealer, here's your data. I'm going to open it up for you and let you see the wizard behind the curtain. Yeah, is that right? Yeah, wizard behind the curtain. Yeah. So you see that, Mr. and Mrs. Dealer. It's up to you what you want to decide. Now, statistically, they're going to most likely, when they come to me and say, we're looking to blah, 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 there's usually a pain point there. So they're probably not, the people on the other end are probably not being very scrupulous. Now, whether they are not, let's literally dive in and look at the facts, not how you feel. Let's look at the facts and see what's going on. Now, if they're not being scrupulous, let's go to Mr. and Mrs. Vendor and see if they are a vendor or if they're actually a partner. If they're a partner, let's look and say, okay, what's going on?
Interesting.
Okay, if that's the case, let's work together and see what's going on. If you're a vendor, and I know some people are like, well, Brooke, you're just changing terminology. No, there is a really big difference. If you bet on the other side, if you bet on both sides, there's a difference. So if you look at it and say, okay, so are you willing to work with this? Are you letting them own their data? You're looking at this, you're looking at that. And when it comes down to, and they cancel, that's really when you start seeing, whether you ask for, hey, ownership, or you say they're going to cancel, you start seeing the real colors come out. And I have 100% been there with the dealer, because I am a partner with them, and saying, no, I'll be on the call with you. And I have been words that I cannot probably say on this show, because it is a string of, I'll say Brooke words, of being told that, just some very poor behaviors that are unscrupulous and things that are not very honorable, that I'm just like, I don't know why you would ever do business with people. How are you still in business? And on the flip side, I have been seeing some incredible, amazing business partners when things have went wrong, and they have 100% head say, hey, that is our fault. we will 100% not only take care of you, here's what we're going to do to make it right. And they went way above board
love it.
to say, this is what we're going to do to make it right. So you have both ends of the spectrum, because there's some really awesome companies out there and great agencies out there. It's just finding that balance. But to your original question is, yes, I have been, I have been
raked over the coals.
Yeah, things that will lead you to not know what is in this cup right now. Been like, okay. So to that, I will say as well, is make sure you have your people that, because if I were just to immediately like fire back, I would get myself in trouble. Like, you've got to know where your line is, but be able to
I can see that with you. I could see that. One thing that I think whenever that hurricane hit Florida, we have a bunch of Sutherland stores, and there were some that were really hit really hard, Fort Myers and places like that. And I immediately we stopped billing them, because they were just completely devastated. And I heard through the grapevine, other vendors did not. They weren't even paying attention, didn't really care, and they ended up getting canceled just because. Hey, come on, there's a human side to this too. You know what I mean? And it's like, you got to be aware of that kind of stuff. It's one of those things. You said something about the facts and not feeling. Sounds like a good podcast.
I hear it's an awesome podcast next to WTF.
Well, Brooke, tell us what is the difference between a vendor and a partner?
Yes.
I think the biggest thing you mentioned the human aspect. So the human aspect is number one. Like, there's all this AI out there. That's great. But what's the human aspect? Are you communicating? We see so much of people just want to talk over people. Are you sitting and actually listening and hearing what your partner, your client partner, the dealership, are you listening to them? Do you know what success looks like to them? And I've said this so much, and Russell, I know you hear me say this a lot, is what does success look like to the dealer? If you don't know that, then you're never on the same page with them. Are you stopping to say, okay, what is it that you're looking for in this relationship? Just like you would with your partner. What is it that they want to get out of this? And if you're not stopping to look at that, because I go back to whether it's advertising, whether it's on whatever sales or on fix, what does it look like to you? Because if they're saying, oh, I just want to move cars, okay, that's great. Tell me something I don't know. But how do you want to sell this car? Are you looking at, hey, we need to move XYZ model, or hey, our competitor is eating our lunch, we want to beat them? Or from a fixed side, man, we haven't been trekking tire sales lately. Well, okay, then you probably need to trek tire sales. Let's do a whole evergreen campaign for tire sales. Oh, we've been sitting on XYZ product back here. We need to move that. Okay, great. So success looks like this. Okay, maybe as an ad agency, you've been tracking freaking click-through rate, and the dealer's like, no, I want to get people in the store. Okay, then we need to track that instead. But knowing is sitting down from a very, very beginning to know, what does success look like to the dealer, and making sure everybody's on the same page. Now, you're going to constantly have to be checking in and saying, okay, so this is what it looked like now, but now what does it look like?
Interesting. Yeah, and you also started to talk about your people, and I wanted you to finish that thought if you recall it.
Yeah. So people is, man, that's a whole episode in itself. That's a whole episode in itself. If you're not, man, I could take this a couple different ways, but people,
take it.
Yeah, man, I can run with this, man. But looking at your people and saying, okay, are you investing in your people? So if I look at, from dealerships, one area, but for myself, if I don't invest in my people, I don't know my people's why. If I don't constantly be saying, I know for myself, all right, there is so much AI. So if I don't spend, that's one thing for me. I constantly am trying to learn about that. I set aside a specific amount of time each day just to learn that. Okay, what about my people? Am I investing in my people and they're learning? When I hear that dealerships don't send their people to, whether it's conferences, or they don't send them to, hey, we're learning how to train them on X, Y, and Z. And especially on the fix, I hear this a lot on the fixed ops side. They're not sending their people to get trained. I'm like, but wait, you're going to send your GM to this conference, but you're not going to send your marketing director or your BDC or your fixed ops or whatever to go get trained. Why the hell not? And I'll tell you why. It's because you know what you're doing at those conferences, and you're afraid they're going to do the same thing when in fact all they want to do is learn. So how are you investing in your people to allow them to learn? And if you're worried about, hey, we can't get people in the door, or from a hiring standpoint, go back and look what your hiring process is. You need to completely revamp your hiring process. What does your in-house, what does it look like? What's your diversity look like from not just from a gender standpoint? Yes, that one is big, but everything else from age to race to gender, everything in between. Are you looking at your statistics to see all right, I've told the story, Russell, I apologize. I know you've heard this a couple of times, but looking at where your reach is. Okay, if we know that English is your number one language, great. What's your second biggest language? If it's Spanish, how many Spanish speakers do you have on your floor right now, both in the front end and the back end, back of house? What does it look like now? Okay, what about from a female standpoint? Same thing. What are you guys looking at? Because that is so big. If you're not investing in your people, you're not looking at those things. And if you think you're just going to randomly throw out a survey and then not do a damn thing about it, don't even do the survey, because people already know what is going on in house. And when those people just leave, or you hire someone, they ghost you, they don't come back, it's because they already know. They already know. Right. So there's so many things you can do with people. But the bottom line is that we sit and if we're not looking at the why of our human beings and our human capital, they're going to leave. And they already know. And if you're just saying, okay, well, Brooke's a great employee, so we're just going to pile more on her. Why? And so people are going to leave when you continue to do that and treat your people like a number, more or less. I could go on and on and I'll rant on this one.
I'm gonna piggyback off that. It is all about the why, not the what and how. If they're inspired and motivated to continue to learn, etc. But a lot of times I find the speed of the pack is set by the leader. And I also wanted to say something along the lines of vendor and vendor partners. I can't get into all the stores because the company is getting so big now, but I've had relationships with people ever since I got out of retail and started in the vendor space that I still see today. They know me personally. I can't even say that now because it's even fewer than that. But when I stop in, it's unannounced. And they could have something going on. I could walk right up to their office and they'll tell me to come in, even if they're on the phone, because they know I'm only going to be there for a second and they know I'm not there to sell them something most of the time. Occasionally, when I go in there and shit, hey, how's the wife? How's the kids? How's this? How's that? Since we last talked, this was going on, that going on, and make mental notes about that kind of stuff. That's the kind of vendor partner that I think you're really, really, really talking about.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to take a moment to say a few words about our new sponsor, WYNN'S. People who love cars love WYNN'S. With over 80 years of experience in innovation, WYNN'S leads the industry with product and system innovations that drive vehicle performance and longevity. WYNN'S leads through our innovation, our technology, and the products we create. We bring a legacy of superior performance that professional service providers trust through our heritage of innovative formulas and unparalleled service. It starts with fuel and oil, and it ends with excellence. Our dedication to research and development has led to more than 18,000 granted and pending patents across our company. And that drive continues today at WYNN'S. New vehicle technology like EV requires leading-edge service and products. WYNN'S ensures our products meet EV requirements and still provide the same high level of protection that we've always offered. We meet tomorrow's needs by using our knowledge and technology today. WYNN'S brings innovative, technically advanced, professional-grade solutions to the world. Our legacy of innovation and performance is always copied, but never outrun. So thank you, WYNN'S, for sponsoring the What the FixedOPS podcast.
But you bring up a good point, Russell, is that there are a lot of companies, I've worked for those companies as well, that I don't ever want to be seen as a salesperson. And when that relationship is like, hey, Brooke, especially being product, well, who do you recommend? I can give you names of good partners, but it really comes down to what you want, because you're no longer, you want to be seen as someone that's an advocate for them. Hey, I'm going to give you value. I'm going to give you this, and I'll provide you with this. When the time comes that you need something, yeah, I'll help you out to help you find good partners, but I'm never going to sell you on something because that's not my job. My job is to provide you value and to help you see what you need to see and to educate you. So
Yeah.
like to you said, like, hey, if I, for the most part, I don't do drop-ins, but if I swing by, I'm like, hey, I'm in the neighborhood and I'm just going to drop you by some donuts or whatever. Oh yeah, sure. We can sit and shoot the shit, whatever. But
Yeah.
you're never going to walk in and be like, oh God, here comes Brooke selling me stuff again. Like you
Oh
don't
yeah.
want to be seen that way. That's why
No.
you hire salespeople. Let them do the
No.
selling stuff.
I mean, it happens particularly since they're bombarded by vendors until they actually become vendor partners. But there is a huge distinction. I'm glad, Charity, that you asked that question because there really is a huge distinction between the two. It's pretty ugly out there. I mean, they're bombarded all day long. And recently on a Clubhouse, a couple of vendors got fired because they weren't partners at all. They don't ever hear from them. They don't offer solutions. This isn't working. That's not working. And they reach out, then they call them. Oh, we'll fix that. Where in the hell have you been for the last 4 months? Yeah, it's crazy.
The more I listen to you, Brooke, the more I'm seeing you as kind of like an educational tool, kind of like a dealership, like an encyclopedia for dealerships on vendors and partners. Is that kind of right?
I have been called that multiple times. You're like, Brooke, you're like the Wikipedia encyclopedia. Like we just keep you around because you know more. I'm like, okay, not the first, but yeah, I will take that. But to your point is like, someone's like, well, you can't know. I'm like, I don't proclaim to know everything, but that being said, I spend so much time. I'm probably pitched in a given week, 20 to 30 products a week. And
Wow.
it's like, so much time is spent investigating these services or these products or the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I was like, okay, sure it isn't. Okay. But so much time because if I don't know it or know enough about it to be like, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Dealer, you're pitched what again? And they're claiming it's FTC and GLBA compliant. I'm like, yeah, but they're asking for admin and they're now marketing your clients for the last 20 years, not compliant. Okay, let's take a look at this product real quickly. So I need to know enough about the product so I can then tell my clients that yes, this is or is not a truthful product to then be able to, know more or less. I got to really know my shit. That's the bottom line. Yes.
Yeah.
And
you save them a ton of time, right?
Yeah.
By doing all the research in advance.
Yes. Yeah. And they know and I'll be on any client call. They want to, I'm there. Hey, let's jump on this call. Let's jump on this call. Let's jump on this call and just honestly cut through the noise. Cause there's so much noise. And I've been in a dealership and worked at a dealership to know that I know that you're getting 300 calls a day or 300 emails a day, probably another 100 calls. Oh, and by the way, get on 6 hours worth of meetings and then somehow do your job. You're like, how am I supposed to do this? So let me cut through all that and just be like, here are the bullet points of what's really important. There's so much, whether it's all the acronyms you want to throw on at this point, because we have more acronyms than freaking NASA, but cut through all that. And this is what you're trying to get to here. Here's the report from the actionable items of all the reports you were just given. Here's what it actually means. And that's really the key right there, because there's so much out there to try to wrap your head around all of it.
So when you come across like new vendors you haven't heard before, new companies, because they're emerging all the time, some of them have a history of other companies that were very successful, et cetera, and they're really good at what they do. And then do you do your research too? I mean, do you get on LinkedIn to see, what the connections are, where they may have been before? Do you do that? I usually link the hell out of it, LinkedIn. Just cross-referencing people I know. A name sounds familiar, and then I'll start digging. And 8 years ago, they worked here, and there's a connection there. It's like the 6 degrees separation. It's small, like what we spoke about. Do you do that kind of stuff, or how do you research a vendor that you don't know?
So great question. LinkedIn is great. Like I do love LinkedIn. The other thing we talked in the very beginning is that relationship business, right? So I would say all of our reaches are pretty far. So if there's someone that, if it's a new company that's been acquired, or if it's a new company, I'm like, who is this? It's weird that I have not heard of this company. Like that's weird. So I'll start reaching out to my friends and be like, I think all of us know enough C-suite individuals to be like, if you have not heard of this company, that probably doesn't sound right. And I'm not saying that all companies have, if I asked 10 CEOs or 10 founders that are pretty big up there, And if they haven't heard of them, that might raise a little bit of red flag to me, because there's enough companies out there that probably should hear them at this point. So at that point, I'm like, okay, can you introduce me to so-and-so so I can get a demo? But I sit on, within a given week, quite a few demos just to be like, okay, why talk to me about this? Why haven't I heard about you? Let me see it. And then I'll just drill them with questions. And if they can't answer like usually the top 5 questions, then you start to be like, okay, next case, you're done. So usually within 15 minutes, usually within 5 minutes, I can usually sniff out whether this company is going to be a legitimate company, or if they're going to do anything positive in regard to, not only say positive, but they're going to be a good fit for dealerships, because there's, between the FTC and GLBA shenanigans, and between GA4, that those 2 things right there are causing so much chaos. And if a company isn't in line with that, or even know what's going on with that, you usually run. I mean, they've got to get that stuff under control. So that's usually the first couple of questions, from all that is usually what I go at first. But I use my connections first and foremost to say, hey, do you know anything about these companies? Do you know the founder? And if they don't know anything about it, then I go to LinkedIn and say, okay, why have I not heard anything about you? And then I just go to town, and I'm like a friggin' dog with a bone and can't stop.
I can only imagine that you are. Is there do you know is there an equal percentage between variable and fixed that you work, or it's really all the above? Or do they sometimes just say, I just want you to look here at these things, etc.? I'm curious.
Man, it's both. Like my onboarding, if any of my clients are watching right now, they're going to be like, yeah, it's a beast. But one of the very first questions is asked is, when it comes to marketing and advertising, what is your budget for fixed versus sales? And that is really, really key. And then do you have a separate one? How is it done? Do you have evergreen? And then not only just from a marketing standpoint, is we're also looking at, okay, in the last month, every single month I look at to see what is your service from all your service pages. What's the activity on that? What's the engagement on that? So we're looking at all of that. So it's, I don't know if I'd say there's an exact split on it, because you're looking at everything, and not just the pages themselves, but what actions were taken on that. And now, because of all the chaos with Google and Google being a hot mess, is looking at that to say, okay, what actions were taken? Are the tools on your website, are they what are called ASC, which is Automotive Standards Council? Are those events firing? Are you partnering with a partner with someone, a solution that is firing those correctly? Or is it just a black hole of data? Because if it is a black hole of data, you can see things, but sometimes if it's a black hole, you can't see it. But if it's not firing correctly, you literally have no idea what's going on with your service scheduler. You don't know what's going on. If it's with a chat provider and they're clicking on service, you can't see anything if it's not a chat provider that's throwing the right events. So it's looking at everything from not just the server side, but also then the chat side, or if they're calling in and the call tracking provider isn't firing the events correctly, and that's a whole other topic, because that's a whole other shenanigans. But there's so many ways to look at this, the fixed ops portion. And then when the advertising comes in, where are they landing the pages? How's the ad copying coming in? And then from there, is it just landing, hey, well, the photo engagement sucks. Well, the photo engagement really suck, or or maybe you just don't have any photos on the page, so it looks like the photo engagement sucks. I mean, you all know this, I'm sure, but how many times do you go to a homepage and the homepage is about what? Sales and acquisition. It's all about selling the car. We do not have a problem selling the damn car. We have a problem with retaining the freaking customer.
Right.
So no one, don't leave right now because you're watching this or listening to this, and please don't do it now. If you're listening to it, you can go and toggle to a
stick around.
Yeah, stick around. But go to your homepage after this, you're done watching this and listening to this, and look at your homepage. Is your homepage 99% about selling the vehicle? How easy is it to go and navigate to your service? Or on your homepage, is there anything about service? Or is it just
ugly,
like this little tiny piece about service? Yeah. And it's some service page that hasn't been updated in 20 years. And it's got people on there that look like they're from 1970. Like it's so frustrating when you look at it.
How about a pair of scissors cutting out a dotted line around a coupon?
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. Or you have one coupon that expired in 2012.
I've seen something really almost like that, but it's ugly. I read this article many years ago about your website is like a dog. Many years ago, people would change website vendors like they would change people in the dealership. Somebody new comes in, they got this web relationship with this website. It's the best website since sliced bread, like etc. Now that's slowed down quite a bit, obviously, but that they say, "What do you mean it's like a dog?" Well, you just put it up and expect it to work. Because dogs need to be fed, they need to be watered, they need shots, they need to be groomed, they need to be let out, and it needs to happen on a daily basis. Somebody needs to engage with that animal. Well, your website is like that too. It's where all 4 of your profit centers are located, and you're really only covering the basis on 2 of them. And some of those are even poorer. Would you agree? Even yeah, it's ugly.
Well, I would say to that fact too, Russell, is that especially if you're the digital marketing probably only person, because heaven forbid you actually have help in that dealership, and please get them help. I'm begging you, please get them help. If you are the sole person that's wearing 10 hats, 20 hats, and you're like the light turner offer, the HR person, the photo taker, the social person, everything between, get someone else to look at the website. Preferably not your GM, not your salesperson. Get the receptionist, get your spouse, get your neighbor, because you are looking at the website every freaking day, and you probably you were probably really heavily involved in building it. So that is your baby, and because you're looking at it all the time, you've got these blinders on because you've been looking at it for so long. So you need someone that's not in the industry. So not saying the receptionist is not in the industry, but that person isn't looking at it all the time. So you really need someone else to look at it and be like, man, this is so insanely hard and difficult to navigate. It's too difficult for me to actually schedule an appointment because you're asking for my blood type, you're asking for my first unborn child, and whether I'm a Pisces.
Security number?
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
It's too difficult to try to go through your digital retailing tool. Once again, why do I have to create an account and give up everything about myself before I just want to do this? Why is it so difficult? So let people and allow them to go and look at it, and then be secure in yourself enough to know that to take the constructive criticism to make the experience better, but across everything. And regularly inspect this. Please regularly inspect it.
It has to be done. I would say, just throwing it out there, 8 out of 10 got challenges. Pages not found, broken link. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And yet they don't even now when somebody brings it to their attention, which I'm sure you do, we do as well in certain situations, but it's like, okay, it took 7 clicks. Okay. And I'm somebody that's looking at your website. Do you think a customer is going to click 7 times to no avail, get a place where it's still an empty hole and there's nothing there? They're not coming back. That's like somebody parking their car in front of your showroom, getting out, walking in, the receptionist is on the phone or playing games. All the other people are playing games or on their phone, or have a customer, walks around the showroom, walks back out, gets in the car and leaves. That's exactly what's going on with the website.
And all they're saying is, hey, excuse me, I would like help. I'd like to either buy a car. Hey, I'd like to come in for service. And they're like, hey, no, you know what? Sorry, I'm too busy. I don't want to help you right now. Like, what? I don't know if you saw the study. I don't know if it was, I'm going to screw it up. I don't know if it was by Harvard or it was some big name. This is, I think, it might have been 4 years ago. And they did it on the Fortune 500 companies. And the majority, I don't know, I think it was like 90, don't quote me on this, 80% of stats are made up anyways, so I'm just going to make it a stat up anyways. Needless to say, the majority of these Fortune 500 companies, I want to say it was close to like 90%, had broken links throughout all of their sites. So this is just not a problem with our industry. This is a problem across all industries where you have these links that are broken. So when we say links that are broken, when you go into your website and you click on, hey, new vehicle pages, and it's inside of a blog or it's inside of one of your pages, those links are broken. Google doesn't like that. Not just Google doesn't like that. Your customers don't like that. So having someone that can go in and look, and you can quickly do this with tools, both Russell and myself, we both can go through and quickly do this and then send it over to your website provider if they do it. Well, they can definitely do it. You can submit a ticket for it, or your ad agency may do it as well. But there are multiple people that can do this and just quickly pull it up. But if you're not inspecting what you expect, you're just making everything so much worse.
Here's 2 tidbits for everybody out there. Just do this. Now, you correct me if I'm wrong, Brooke. I don't mind being corrected. Next to new and used vehicles, the second most visited content page, typically heat mapping will show, is the specials content page, which is where all 4 of your profit centers are located. And any of your other top level navs, when you click on that top level nav and you got 50 items 3 rows deep, wrong, ain't happening, anxiety, customers bounce, they can't find what they're looking for. 8 or 9 items in a nav drop down, probably about it. And then anxiety, according to all the research I read, starts to happen. Do you kind of agree with that kind of stuff? I mean,
Well, that and think how it is on because most people aren't going to be on a desktop. Most people are going to be on a mobile device. So if it's on a mobile device and you've got this bad boy and you're like, hey, I'm trying to like scroll through this and I can't even freaking find it because it's off the page or off my phone. Like, why am I going to try to do this? And to your point, the other thing that's really big, if you're on a website, one of the most downloaded, clicked on things is a freaking window sticker. I don't know. And this is prior to, prior to like prices jumping through the roof. I get that, like take that out of the equation. Prior to 2020, and even now, like people love to click on the Windows sticker freaking icon. Don't know why, but they love to click on that icon, that CTA. So that's another one. If you are not tracking these things, how do you know?
Is that a post-COVID or pre-COVID thing?
This is both. Like this is stuff we've been tracking this stuff for a long time and been following up. But yeah, the little tiny button that's like the Moroni sticker, like it's just like, hey, Windows sticker, blah blah blah, and they click on it, it pulls up the Moroni sticker. People love that freaking button. Don't ask me why, but they do. People love that.
I just learned something. I didn't know that. Did you know that, Charity?
No, I'm not even sure what it is exactly.
it's the federally mandated manufacturer suggested retail, the sticker that's on the window of a new car.
Oh,
on all the options and what the costs are.
It's
called the Moroni sticker.
Yeah, so like certain website providers will bring it in automatically. And it's other ones, like sometimes there's a glitch and won't bring it on, like on used cars forever, for instance. So like you'll have, I remember being in the dealerships and customers would freak out and they're like, we just want the window sticker. We're like, calm down. Like literally people would go into the chat, they would email us and freak out because they couldn't get the window sticker. We're like, what? Why do people want the window sticker? But people love that freaking window sticker. Yeah. So we did there's been multiple reports and multiple studies about how much people love that freaking window sticker button. People love it though. I guess it's a transparency thing, but yeah, if you're not tracking that, go back and look at that. Like now with ASC, you can track all these buttons and you go to Elements, and it'll be the ASC CTA interaction. You can go to configuration and element text, and you'll be able to see it there. I'm trying to do this from memory here, but yeah.
That is incredible.
We are passionate about helping consumers find a great, trusted place to get their car fixed. We have 4 million uniques who come to our website each month for car repair information, and we help them find our REPAIRPAL certified locations. We also have amazing partners like USAA that offer our REPAIRPAL certified network to their customers and members. So how are we going to help dealers? Well, dealers sell 100% of the cars, but over time, after the warranty expires, the repairs go up and the revenue potential goes up, but people keep leaving the dealer over time after the warranty. By years 10 or 12, only about 20% of people are still servicing at the dealer. Why is that? There's one dominant reason, and that is price perception. And being REPAIRPAL certified helps you overcome the primary price perception problem. So come let us show you how REPAIRPAL can help you too.
Did you guys get all that?
That was and she is talking a foreign language. She's speaking in tongues now.
Listen, the last 5 minutes, no charge either. Yeah.
That's right.
Charity, you have a question?
Sure. I think we should pivot to learning more about your podcast.
Yes.
And
let's do that.
Yeah, we touched on it just a little bit, but you did mention that you started it to make the industry better. But my question is that the only motivation behind starting it?
Yeah, great question. So I literally turned on the camera, not knowing. I'd never listened to a podcast in my life, didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just go, if I can help one person, that is honestly the whole reason why I did it. And I think it was probably within my first 10 guests, one of my friends, I had her on and she goes, so is this an audio or is it video? And I started only uploading to YouTube. And I go, I've never listened to podcasts. I don't know what podcasts are. I honestly never listened to a podcast. So my entire search history was how to start a podcast, what microphone. Like I did not have a microphone. I had like a little lapel mic and that was it. And I didn't know what I was doing. And so the whole, honestly, and I'm sure this is going to come across like, oh yeah, she's like little, and I can say this with full-heartedly, the only reason I started the podcast was if I could help one person, that is why I did it. It was educational to move the auto industry forward. And that is prior to starting my company, before all this, I was rarely even on social media, And
Really?
I made a pact that I would never turn on the camera unless I could be honest with myself and with my audience. Like there was a December through January, which is usually a pretty heavy time to probably be promoting yourself and the brand. I didn't post because there was just some stuff going on. I was like, I can't turn on the camera and be honest with the audience. And so the God's honest truth is to help and educate. And so every single person I bring on, if they don't fit into that mold of, it's not an echo chamber. Like I bring people on that I don't necessarily agree with what they're talking about, but it's because I can learn from them. So if whatever they talk about, whatever we're discussing, can this help the auto industry and move it forward? Well, what they discuss is what actionable items can be discussed to help move the industry forward. And will this help our industry? Will it help the audience? Now I brought people in that maybe aren't in the industry, or maybe they're, it's just something that will help people and to educate them. And that is the sole purpose of the podcast.
That's great. Well, it's done very well. I don't even know how I got connected with it. All I know is I knew people, maybe that was it. And I saw this thing and I showed up, and I like engaging with you. Obviously, you know that on your podcast. I mean, just because your energy, and most of the guests I actually even already know, and yet I never knew you. And then right after starting that, there you are at Digital Dealer in Tampa in the same bar. For all those listening, yeah, everybody knows I'm in recovery. No, I was not drinking except Perrier. Okay, I'm just wanting to set the record straight. But you got quite the reputation. Everybody, it seems, not everybody, a lot of people, podcast. They want to start a podcast. They want to do it most of the time for all the wrong reasons. Sometimes they're for the right reasons. I think it can accomplish multiple things. And people want to wait for this or they want to wait for that instead of just getting started. So I want to take this moment to say that we have thousands of followers, and we wouldn't even have that today if it wasn't for Charity. Because she's so thinking outside of the box. It is incredible. She started even in my company. She started before I did. And she came up with this idea, WTF. What the fit? Oh, I love it, man. It really resonates well. But we've had really phenomenal guests, and she's done such a tremendous job, and she is so slammed. I don't even know how she did it. Now we have Patrick, who's on the team now. But I got to tell you, she is amazing at what she's done. And most of the time, I just show up. I don't even honestly know how she does it. I really don't. I mean, you'll see it. Most people have an episode. Well, we're going to have an episode with you, but then Patrick's going to chop it up to anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 or 3 minutes, and it'll be sprinkled everywhere every day for like 2 or 3 weeks. It's like, there's Brooke again. There's Brooke again. Anyway.
We do really well on like the podcast version. It's interesting to look at the numbers and see, oh, this person did better on the YouTube MP4 version than they did on the MP3 version, or vice versa. It's really an interesting game. You do learn quite a bit just doing it, but you also learn quite a bit from your guests that you have on, which Russell and I have learned so much.
Oh my gosh. Yes, we have.
Yeah, including from you. So my question to you is, what do you think you have learned the most over time with your guests? Are there any recurring themes, or, what comes to mind?
Man, that is a great question.
It is.
Honestly, like every time I interview someone, it is going back to what you're saying, is like before I was editing everything. So it was, people don't understand the amount of time that goes.
I understand.
The financial, like people that are starting out, they're like, oh, I'm gonna make a podcast. I'm like, okay, let's park that for a hot second.
Wait a minute.
Do you understand that you have 10 banked and it takes about 10 hours to go through? Now AI is a little bit different, but lately the big thing that I've found over the last, like I would say, I literally went over, I'm like, what year are we in? Yeah, that's where my brain's at right now. In 2023, there's been a reoccurring theme about leadership. Like that has been a big one. And so like when someone's like, I want to talk about leadership, I'm like, great, narrow that down for me, because we've done so many shows on leadership. So that has been a huge reoccurring theme this year in particular. So leadership, culture, mentorship, those have been three big ones for 2023. And what's been interesting with that theme, that it's been all fixed ops related individuals that want to talk about it, which has been it's been really cool to see this theme of like, when I, bring on guests, I always ask them first and foremost, all right, what is it that you want to talk about? I always ask them. And every single person that's brought up leadership, except one person, because her background is in training and culture. Every other person has been, I want to talk about leadership, I want to talk about culture, I want to talk about mentorship. Great, let's talk about that. So it's been really cool to see the majority of people talking about that. But what I've learned, man, I don't even know that I can encapsulate that, because every time I take away so many things, I guess if I have to narrow that down, is just that we have got some incredible humans in our industry that are so insanely smart, whether that's book smart, whether that's street smart, whether it's both, that if we would just take the time to slow down and get out of our damn echo chambers and say that, hey, that person may not sound like me, may not look like me, may have different views than me, go talk to them and put your ego aside for 2 seconds and listen to them, because they're really smart. So go listen to them and talk to them and learn from them. But instead of talking over them, listen and hear what they have to say, because I can tell you, I can go back and watch shows, and I watch them multiple times, and I get something out of them every single time. But really just stop and listen and hear what they have to say, because I'm blown away every single time I interview someone. I'm like, man, they are so freaking smart.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's how, yeah.
I find a lot of them interject the human side of things. So I got started many years ago on a trajectory. I have my own philosophies on what it takes to move ahead, and leadership. I mean, all those things are important. And I read a lot of the same books over and over again, and I'll read a lot of new books. And it's a common reoccurring theme on self-help or whatever it takes to move to the next level. But it always involves giving back, being of service, understanding people's why, and making sure that they count, they matter, they make a difference, and they're part of something instead of just a number or a body. And that's a critical part of leadership. I have seen, and I'm sure Cherry, the same thing. And I hear it from the front end as well as the back end, but much more on the fixed side. People, leadership, and everybody's got a little bit different take on it. And I eat it up. Matter of fact, I'm reading a transcript right now, Charity and I both, of Ed Roberts' book that's fixing to hit. And you
It's
know
about leadership.
Yeah, it's about leadership. That guy is amazing, and I can't wait for him. He's going to be on our show again, and we're just going to dive into the leadership and the book itself. Anyway, I just eat that kind of stuff. I think everybody really does, particularly with all the diversity we have now, the Gen Alphas and Gen Z, Gen Y, millennials, baby boomers, etc. We all want the same thing. There's just different ways to communicate, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And learning how to not only communicate, how to train, how to talk, whether you're selling, whatever it may be, just knowing how to communicate with each type. I mean, it used to be like, oh, well, so you learn through visual versus there's different ways of learning. Well, there's different ways of learning with each individual and each individual type. It's so imperative that you continue to learn and hone your craft. Now, you may think, well, I'm marketing, so I'm going to hone that craft. That's a part of it. But if you're not learning how to communicate with each individual and each individual type, you're missing the boat 100%.
Only a part of it. And we've all heard this. People don't give a poop about what you know until they know how much you care. Not really. Are you listening to respond, or are you listening to understand? I do a combination of both. I don't know how I do it, but it works against me when I don't listen to understand and I listen to respond. And I catch myself, and that's all. It's about growth. It's about changing. It's about adapting. And, things you learn. It's like, how did you get there, Russell? How do you get there, Brooke? How do you get there, Patrick? How do you get there, Charity? Well, I wasn't that way 10 years ago. Well, I probably was that way 10 years ago. 29 years ago, you wouldn't have wanted to know me. I was a taker. I wasn't a giver. I consumed everything in my path. And a lot of us have that similar kind of story. And we hit this crossroad or this point in our life where, hey, something's going to have to change, or because the results are the same every day, every month, every year. I'm not moving forward. Have you had any moments like that in your life, Brooke? Crossroads or turning points?
Turning points, probably. I think all of us have turning points. For me,
Sure.
my biggest one is two things. One, the perfectionist portion of me has been a really difficult one. I go back to my younger brother, is that when I first started the company, it was live for a bit, and then I due to some I had to shut it down, and then I resurrected it here over the last couple of years. But he just goes, "Hey, you've got an option, Brooke." Like, he goes, "I know how hard you work, and to your detriment." He goes, "Now you have an option. You can work those crazy hours, or you can have the quality of life that you want. Like, I know how much you like how I work a couple hours a week, work a few days a week, and the rest of the time I spend with my girls." He goes, and that's what's so great about our industry, is that you can have whatever you want. Like, what your different levels of success is up to you. He goes, "So which is it you want to do? You can make X and work the crazy hours, or you can make Y and have a little bit more free time." I go, I like that idea better. Now I'm still trying to work on the Y portion and get to those not working crazy hours. But that was the moment, like, kind of switched my mind. I was like, you're right. I don't need to work those crazy hours anymore, because that is something that's always been so difficult to me to shut off work. That has been so hard and so difficult for me to shut off work. That's been a very difficult.
Me too. It's like, okay, do you want money or do you want time?
Mm-hmm.
I want both, and I have neither. But I'm going to figure it out someday. Okay. I don't have the money and I don't have the time. It's just like, it's like 24 hours in a day. It's just boom. It moves so fast. But I'm really grateful and no regrets. And I'm sure most people who are, it's like you think differently in your 20s than you do your 30s and your 40s and your 50s. And I know most of you might find it hard to believe I'm in my 80s. And how do you keep doing it, Russell? No, I'm not in my 80s. Brooke, did you pause for a minute?
I was like, all I can think, I'm like, keep smiling. There's no way he's in his 80s. I was like, holy shit, he looks good.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway.
Well,
listen.
there is, sorry, Russell.
No. You go ahead.
Okay. So at the end of your podcast, Brooke, you end by suggesting to people that they find a way to serve. And I wanted to ask you specifically about that. Why do you take the time to include that in your podcast?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's an interesting, this is a very interesting week for me. This is what actually happens to be the week of my anniversary of my mother's passing. And so I was brought up with my mom, who just was a constant, the most selfless person I've ever met in my life. And we were always, no matter how little we had, it was always, you can always give. Like, even if you have nothing, you can give of yourself. You can always serve. And that was just so ingrained in us. And so I just said, hey, I have a platform that it doesn't matter what you do or how crappy your day is, you can still be the joy in someone's life. And so as I started going through this, I was like, how do I sign off? Everyone's like, oh, follow me. I'm like, but that's really just in my mind, it's a selfish thing to do. Now, I understand everyone does it. And believe me, it's definitely, I'm sure, hurt my, getting likes and follows, whatever.
No.
But for me, that is just something that's so ingrained in me, that if you're not doing good in the world, if you're not serving, even if it's something as I say this, is just simply opening a door, smiling, giving someone a hug, whatever it may be, just doing something to serve today. And that is just, honestly, it's so ingrained in my DNA because of my mother. And I just chose that route to honor her, but also just because that's who I am. I guess that's just, to my soul, that's how I was brought up.
That was awesome. And has anybody ever asked you that, why you say that at the end?
No one.
That's why charity is charity right there. I'm telling you, man. She does the research. I thought I knew a lot about some of the guests on here, and she uncovers stuff I never even thought of.
I'm impressed.
It's really amazing. And it is. I find that Zig Ziglar philosophy, it really is true. If you help enough other people get what they want, you're going to get what you want. It doesn't always happen on our time frame. Most of the time it doesn't. There's nobody to blame. It's just, you just keep getting up and you keep going after it. When I get really down sometimes, I stop, I unplug, I walk around, I call somebody or text somebody I haven't talked to in a while, just to say, hey, I was thinking about you, want to let you know you're awesome. And it really serves me well of getting me outside of whatever the problem was, or a kind word or a gesture. Here's what I really love. Walking up to a restaurant door, somebody's getting out of their car, you're getting out of your car, wife, whatever the case, kids, you're walking up the door same time. They're looking at you. I know what they're thinking. He wants to get there in front of me so he can get in line. And I do. I'll step out a little bit quicker right towards the end, but then I'll open the door and I see a total surprise on their face and said, please. And then what did they do? They opened the door for me.
Yep.
Anyway, I just love that kind of stuff. It makes a difference.
There's nothing like it. Like there's just a little, the access service, like whether if you financially can do it, like picking up someone's mail, whether just the little things like I know there's a friend episode where Phoebe and Joy are going to like, she's like, there's nothing, you can't do a selfless act. It's always selfish. And he's like, what do you mean? Because you always feel good at the end. I'm like, but that's the thing. Like when you do those things, what you get out of it is just incredible. Like you can't beat that feeling. And so one thing I've really enjoyed is like starting my own company for a lot of things, but it honestly has given me that moment to like, wait, the minute that thought pops in your head, like to text that person, to pick up the phone and call that person. Oh, wait, why is that person on my mind? Well, you better damn well do something about it because you might not get that chance again. But really, whenever you have that moment to do whatever, pick up the phone and call that person, or to your point, open the door, whatever it may be, because those things, you don't know what the action and the ripple effect it's going to have on the next person, the next person, the next person, the next person. It's just,
there is a common denominator. I know we're getting closer. There's a common denominator. When I see angry, frustrated people all the time, they're not givers, they're takers. There's usually some combination there. And I remember my son, I've said this on here probably many times. Sherry's going, Russell, really? Again? Yeah, again. Okay, here we go. My son said, Dad, how do you know if you're making the right decisions? And he said, you always seem to make the right decisions. He's in the car business, 33 years old. And I said, well, thank you very much. That's really not the case. But he said, no, really. Is there some formula or some, if other people benefit and I benefit, it's a good decision. If I benefit at the expense of other people, it's usually not a good decision because every decision we make involves people, loved ones, colleagues, somebody around us is involved in that. So if you're doing it for the right reasons and other people benefit, you're usually going to be on top. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah. And there are times that it can be, how to phrase this, but yes, it does need to be mutually beneficial. And there are times that maybe it doesn't, you may have in business that you need to cut ties, and while it might not seem it's mutually beneficial, it still is, because that client really isn't benefiting from you and you're not benefiting from them. So it is mutually beneficial to cut ties. So it's just looking at it holistically.
I've learned tremendous things from just that example that you laid out, where at the time it was like, I didn't want it to happen, but it needed to happen. It should have happened. I was selfish thinking, well, but then I stop and back up. I always like to think of things like that. And I actually benefited it and modified a few things on some of the things I was doing. So I became better as a result of that potential loss.
Amen.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Amen.
Wow. Charity.
Well, let's see, Brooke, we have a couple minutes. If there's anything that we missed or that you'd like to say, you have the floor. Or you want to plug yourself? We let people do that here.
No, I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been a great conversation. I super appreciate it, and just everything you guys are doing, I super appreciate it. So thank you for so much. And yeah, just do good in the world. That's the bottom line. Do good in the world. We need a little bit more good in this world and less people at their throats. And yeah, that's what we'll go with. We'll go with that.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Very successful. Thank you, everybody. Another extremely successful episode of WTF, and that's What the Fixed Ops. Brooke, thank you. We're humbled and honored that you came on our show today. And I don't know exactly when you're going to be released because, as usual, Charity's got that figured out. Her and Patrick will figure it out. But listen, you're going to know when it happens. You're going to see her all over the place. Like her, love her, share her, reach out to her if you have any questions. If you're looking for a consultant to somebody this caliber with that kind of attitude, that's the person that you want in your store looking over things. Even if my company's in there, I'm okay with it. Okay. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just saying. No, thank you, everybody, very much for your support. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brooke.